that we should turn the USA into an isolated, authoritarian, zealously religious country.
Ooh.
I'm not used to arguing for more freedoms against conservatives on stage, but I guess that's where we're at right now with the conservative movement, or whatever part of the conservative movement this is. Today, we've got viewers gathered from all across the world tuning in to a debate between me and Milo, where Milo is going to argue that we should turn the USA into an isolated, authoritarian, zealously religious country. I think that technology is the Pandora's box that has changed this country and this world forever, and I don't think we're ever going back to the days of public squares and mail service by horse. Cultural exchange is happening, whether you like it or not, quite literally at the speed of light. Even right now, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of people around the world are listening to me and my.
It's just the neo progressive talking points that I've dealt with a million times. They want to regress us to the 1800s. They want women. They want to chain them to stoves. They want them to be property. They don't believe in technology. They're authoritarian. It's just the same every time. And the second you dive, it's the same thing. It's like Radical Coper. He wanted to like make his girl boss statement last night when I was on Sarah the Tomatoes channel, and he went on this like public rant, almost like it was an opening statement about, Andrew Wilson's talking points, giving us the same talking points that we cannot refute, right? Basically, he's the same shtick, right? Well, authoritarian nation with blah, 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 where people can't have unlimited and destroy all the peace of humanity. I know it's terrible, right? I get sick of it, man, because it's just the same over and over and over. And you point out very quickly, just like you can just get into the semantics quick. What's an authoritarian? By the time they get done with it, it's like, so every president you've ever voted for, the Supreme Court, all of them fit the criteria for what authoritarians are? Well, not exactly, you see, because those are our authoritarians. It's like, these people. Destiny is full of presumptive, assuming snarky retorts when he thinks he's being overtalked or his questions aren't being answered. Is this an accurate observation? No. No, he also does it when he's losing. He does that when he's losing, too.
Milo have this debate. The only way to stop this type of cultural exchange is through the militant authoritarianism that Milo is talking about on this stage. That might be through his being against the First Amendment, that might be against his taking away of the Second Amendment, and that might be through the institution of a state religion. This means the destruction of our freedom of speech, our ability to produce media, satire, and comedy, and our ability to communicate openly on the social media platforms we've all unfortunately grown addicted to. After Milo gets his way and abolishes the First Amendment, is he going to be the one deciding who we can or cannot make fun of on Twitter?
Nathan.
Is the world really going to return to how it was before birth control, before women had the right to work, before people were allowed to get married, before we were allowed the ability to freely worship whatever God we wanted or abstain from worship altogether? I reckon that we cannot close Pandora's box.
This is probably one of the worst arguments from the neo-progressive and neo-conservative camp. This would be I would think, in fact, that a lot of the modern neo-conservatives and Destiny would agree on this point, that the Pandora's box is open, and there is no putting... there's no going back to whatever, because they always pretend it's like it's a system of regression. You're going back to something. What's funny about it, though, is like, this is not what history seems to support. How many times did Rome go from a republic back over to a Caesar, back to where you switched multiple times, right? Switched over multiple times. Necessarily, by the way. Seemed like the times required different forms of government for what was going on in the world. One form of government, right, regardless of the type that you seem to prefer the most, can't always respond well, depending on what's going on in the world. I would even go so far as to argue that a strong authoritarian leader can at times do way more good in the world unilaterally, depending on the conditional of the world, than an entire democracy can. Just depends on the conditions of the world that you find yourself in. And it's like, we see this time and time and time again. It's actually quite the opposite, that in the historic standard, we find that people move between authoritarian regimes and out of it into more freedom-loving regimes or whatever all the time, constantly, nonstop. It's not so simplified to just say, well, it's Pandora's box and it's been opened and there's no going back. It's like, no, that's not the case. The true case is that the conditions of the world are going to make requirements of governments that you may not like sometimes. That's the way it is.
Christian nationalism, as it stands today, isn't even a coherent ideology. Its proponents will argue whether there's an ethnic component, whether one needs to be Catholic or not, and whether one needs to even be a Christian or a supporter at all in order to idolize somebody for a Christian nationalist ideology. How many more stars does Donald Trump need to work his way through behind his wife's back before Christian nationalists stop worshiping him as their savior? As small as Christian nationalism is as a movement, even with it being as small as it is, there is still endless infighting. Anyone who's taken a gander recently at Milo, Ali Alexander, or Fuentes' Telegram account can attest to that.
Another really poor argument by the progressives here, and this one you hear a lot too. What kind of Christianity? What kind? There's infighting with Christians all the time. What kind would you have? Funny you should mention this. Well, it's almost like, via the 10th Amendment, that option was settled. That option was settled, wasn't it? And states adopted the religion of their choice for that state. Much the way Utah still is run by Mormons. And it's a big fat cope when people say it isn't, because it is. Okay? It is. But the thing is that the left infights constantly, nonstop. But what they do is they say the same thing. They go, but even though we're infighting, we still have like this core shared sense of values, right? We have this like little core sense of values and we rally around that core. But somehow Christians can't do that, even though we still have the core of Christian ethics doing the same exact thing. You know what I mean? It's a really argument when it's applied back to them because they're doing the same.
And now, with an already fractured and fighting minority movement, some want to put even more restrictions, such as race, lineage, status, or geography on who ought to be allowed to join their movement. The glory days of Christianity are largely over.
Yeah, but so does the left. The left has the same kind of gatekeeping. Of course, if people have and live lives which are ideologically the opposite of what your ideology is, opening up whatever your political ideology is necessarily going to change because of that. The left has to remove people from their political movements constantly for not following the correct dogmas of that political movement. They do it all the time, right? Oh, you said this, you're a racist. You said this, you're a Snazi, right? You said this, you're a Klan member. Like they have endless gatekeeping when it comes to this. He acts like it's all inclusive. Yeah, right. It's the opposite of all inclusive. Lee Kuan Yew, authoritarian leader of Singapore, who transformed a third world hellhole into an economic model in Asia, huge W. Really.
While the number of worshipers have ebbed and flowed through time, it's impossible for us to return to where we came from. In 1999, almost 70% of Americans were part of a church, synagogue, or mosque. And just 20 years later, in 2020, according to Pew Research, that number has fallen to just 47%. A minority of the population.
Why don't you just say what it is and call out Destiny for being a Satanist? Destiny would agree that the tenets of the Satanic Church are things he likely agrees with. What do you mean? He would likely agree with that. If I pulled up the 10 tenets of the Satanic Church, he would likely agree with each tenet of the Satanic Church.
For the first time in
How do you think that that's a dunk on these people, though? Why do you think it's a dunk to be like, well, you're a Satanist, when they clearly rebel against and hate God? They clearly rebel against and hate God. Why do you think that that's a dunk? They revel in that. Oh, yeah? And does that trigger you? Does that trigger you, Mr. Christian guy? Why do you think they do it? Satanism, especially LaVeyan Satanism, has nothing at all to do with Satan, and it has nothing at all to do with God. It has to do 100% with you being rebellious towards Christian authority and hating it. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been, is a rebellion against Christian authority. That's it. I live in Salt Lake City. It's 100% run by Mormons. Of course it is. Everyone here knows it. It's a big good old boys club, and they make a lot of money. Salt Lake is pretty damn liberal, too. Doesn't surprise me.
It was history. We need to be realistic about the coming years. We need to help our young men and women find purpose in the world and stop pretending like some Christian nationalism is the answer. We need to find ways to get our young people engaged with their friends, family, and their communities in ways that synergize with the technological explosion the entire world has experienced.
Yeah, but the thing is like, that's not new. We kind of pretend like it is, but the technological explosion is not something which is new. Revolutionary technologies have been happening nonstop for the last 200 years. Everything from the mass production of the steam engine to the telegram to the telephone to cellular technology to personalized computers and things like this, right? And there's always plateaus, and we'll hit a plateau here eventually, and then other types of technology will come 60 years nigh or whatever, which will completely revolutionize it again. You know, we've been through tons of technological revolutions, even technological micro-revolutions. But the thing is that social cohesion still matters regardless of your tech level. You know what I mean? It's not like we have lots of great technology, so therefore social cohesion is no longer necessary. It's like, that's stupid.